Okay, let's talk about Diotima's ladder. This is the ascent to truth and beauty. This ladder narrative comes to us from Symposium, which is a Plato dialogue that takes place one evening between Socrates and a bunch of his buddies who've gotten together for a party, and they decide to talk about love. The purpose of love, what is the best love, is there any good purpose to love, and that kind of thing. Finally, kind of towards the end of this discussion, when these guys are partying and talking about love, towards the end of this discussion, Socrates mentions that once he talked to the priestess, a woman named Diotima, who told him her view of love, and that's what we're about to get here. Diotima's ladder complements the chariot allegory in a lot of ways. Both of them have to do with the soul in response to a beloved, beautiful thing, a person. And both of them carry within them not only Plato's view of the soul, but also Plato's view of the purpose of the soul, the purpose of human life. So let's get started. So what is this all about? Why is Diotima even telling Socrates in the first place about love? Well, Socrates says that their conversation that he is recounting to his listeners at this party, his conversation with Diotima started by her talking to him about how it is that all living things pursue immortality. Diotima says, mortal nature seeks as far as it can to exist forever and to be immortal. But the only way it can achieve this is by continual generation, the process by which it always leaves behind another new thing to replace the old. So one generation giving birth to the next generation, whether this is animal or vegetable life. Diotima goes on to say, believe me, Socrates, you have only to look at humankind's love of honor, and you will be surprised at your absurdity in questioning the mortal desire for immortality, unless you think about it and reflect how strongly people are affected by the desire to become famous and to lay up immortal glory for all time. Do you not suppose that Achilles would have sacrificed his life to avenge Patroclus if he had not thought that the memory of his virtue, which indeed we still have of him, would be immortal? So, remember when we talked about Achilles and his pursuit of glory, this path to immortality where he will live on forever in the memories of living humans? Diotima says, clearly this is an example of humans longing for immortality. So here's comprehension question number 1, which you can answer now before going on to the rest of the video. What does Diotima say motivates people to 1, have children, and 2, attain honor? After you've written your answer to this, you can go on. In the next portion of her dialogue with Socrates, Diotima explains how love of one beautiful body is merely the lowest rung, or the first step in the ascent to eternal truth and beauty. So in your notes, I want you to notice that you have a ladder. I want you to fill in the 10 steps on Diotima's ladder. Notice the bottom step, the very bottom. That is step number 1. So let's start at that bottom step. She says, step 1 is, a person who would set out on this path in the right way must begin in youth by directing his attention to beautiful bodies. And first of all, if his guide is leading him aright, he should fall in love with the body of one individual only, and there procreate beautiful discourse. Okay. So I've underlined for you the important part of each step. And basically Diotima is saying, that how humans are physically attracted to other humans and how that especially happens for young people, that is the lowest rung in this ladder towards something. We haven't decided what we're ascending to, but it's something eternal. And that's just the first step. Step 2, she says, then he will realize for himself that the beauty of any one body is closely akin to that of any other body, and that if what is beautiful in form is to be pursued, it is folly not to regard the beauty in all bodies as one and the same. So this is the next step. So I love this one beautiful person. Look, the beauty of everybody around is just the same. Not that you will love everyone around, but to regard the beauty as one and the same. When he has understood this, step 3, he should slacken his intense passion for one body, despising it and considering it a small thing, and become a lover of all beautiful bodies. So in other words, don't just be obsessive or loving over this one beautiful body, but become a lover of all beautiful bodies, of all beautiful things. Step 4. After this, he will realize that the beauty in souls is more to be prized than that in the body. So it's more beautiful, the body or the soul? Oh, by step 4, he is beginning to realize it is the beauty of the soul. Step 5, if therefore someone's soul is good, even if his physical attraction is slight, that will be enough for him. And he will love and care for that person. So the love and the care for someone with a good soul is step 5. Step 6, and he will seek out and give birth to that kind of discourse that will make young men better people. So what kind of talk is this? What kind of talk that are you having with a person with a good soul that makes a young person a better person? It's that kind of discourse that we get in step 6, that kind of conversation. Step 7, as a consequence, he will be compelled to contemplate the beautiful as it exists in human practices and laws, to see that the beauty of it all is of one kind, and to realize that what is beautiful in a body is trivial by comparison. So now we're contemplating the beautiful as it exists, not just in people or in souls, but in human civilizations, in the practices of human civilization, and in laws. That's step 7. Step 8. After this, his guide must lead him to contemplate knowledge in its various branches, so that he can see beauty there too. And looking at what is now a wide range of beauty, he is no longer slavishly contented with the beauty of any one thing. So we're looking at all things that are beautiful. In step 9, instead, he will turn towards the vast sea of the beautiful, and while contemplating it, he will give birth to many beautiful and indeed magnificent discourses and thoughts in a boundless love of wisdom. So by now we're in this vast sea, this boundless love of wisdom. And what are we giving birth to? Magnificent discourses and thoughts. Step 10, finally, until there, at this vast sea of the beautiful place, strengthened and invigorated, he discerns a unique kind of knowledge, which is knowledge of a beauty whose nature I will now describe. So finally at step 10, there's an apprehension of a new kind of knowledge of the kind of beauty she's going to talk about next. The kind of beauty Diotima talks about next is marvelous, eternal beauty. So let's talk about this destination. Anyone who has been guided to this point in the study of beauty and has been contemplating beautiful things in the right sequence will suddenly perceive a beauty that is marvelous in its nature, the very thing, Socrates, for the sake of which all the earlier labors were undertaken. So what are we trying to get to? We're trying to get to this understanding of beauty as marvelous and eternal. That is the destination. That is the top place of Diotima's ladder. That's what it's been leading us towards. First of all, she defines eternal, this kind of marvelous eternal beauty, by what it is not. What he sees in the first place is eternal. That means it doesn't come into being, and it doesn't die. It doesn't grow, and it doesn't get smaller. It doesn't waste away. Secondly, it's not beautiful in just one way and ugly in another, or just beautiful at some times and ugly at other times, or beautiful by one person's set of standards and ugly by another person's set of standards. And finally, the beautiful, it doesn't appear just in part, like a beautiful hand or a beautiful face, or like a beautiful discourse, or a certain branch of conversation. It doesn't appear in part. It would be complete. So what is this eternal, marvelous beauty? It exists on its own. It's single in substance and everlasting. So it is itself complete and self-sufficient, exists on its own. All other beautiful things partake of it, but in such a way that when they come into being or die, the beautiful itself does not become greater or less, or in any way change. So everything can partake of it, but it itself is never in any way changed. It is there alone, when he sees the beautiful with that by which it has to be viewed, that he will give birth to true virtue. There is a connection here between eternal beauty and true virtue in the individual. Okay, but this whole thing started with Diotima talking to Socrates about all humans have this quest for immortality, and that is what drives them to procreate, and also drives them to commit deeds of honor and glory. So she concludes, and when he has given birth to true virtue, it is possible for him to be loved by the gods and to become, if any human can, immortal himself. So this is, in other words, the key to true human immortality, according to Diotima. Socrates then relates to his audience that he believes Diotima, and therefore, he says, in the attainment of immortality, human nature could not easily find a better helper than love. For this reason, I declare for my part that every man should honor love, and I myself honor the study of love and practice it to an exceptional degree. Why would you study and honor love? Well, it is by love that you ascend to the eternal, marvelous beauty that then gives birth to true virtue in you, and true virtue is what earns you the love of the gods, and then you can become, as far as any human can, immortal. Comprehension questions here, number 2 and number 3. What is the destination to which Diotima's ladder leads? And number 3, how is this path to immortality different from Achilles, or for that matter, Odysseus's attempts to achieve immortality?